Welcome to the Zone, and welcome to part 4 of Stalker Storytime. I hope you enjoyed this long-awaited and constantly requested video. I've written and recorded a few parts which will be coming out periodically. If you enjoyed the content, feel free to like and subscribe. Without further ado, let's begin. Mikhail quickly ambled through the damp and shadowy corridors, attempting to retreat to his ingress point, where his team waited for him. The stalker quickly snapped his head over his left shoulder, attempting to make out any silhouettes in the darkness behind him. He heard the sound of mutated feet sloshing through ankle-deep and stagnant water, a sound that was creeping up behind him as he made his way down the hallway. He could tell it was gaining on him. The mutant was able to move faster than Mikhail, and he knew it. Continuing to run through the flooded hallway as fast as his legs would carry him, Mikhail looked down at his rifle, allowing his headlamp to illuminate his magazine as he pulled it out and dropped it. He reached for his side pouch, fumbling at the tight straps holding a fresh magazine for his AK-74. Behind him, another unearthly and shrieking growl deafened. As he rocked his magazine into his rifle, Mikhail could see a dim red light coming from down the corridor. "I've got one on my tail, run!" Mikhail's words echoed as he shouted them to his team. His heart raced, and he knew that he wouldn't be able to keep running at this speed for much longer. He braced himself as he prepared to face his attacker. The sergeant would try one last time to kill the creature in the dark, or at least he would buy his friends time to escape as he was devoured. Mikhail began to shift his weight to his left leg, preparing to pivot all of his energy in an attempt to fall on his back, his weapon ready in hand. He took one last deep breath. Just as Mikhail was in the middle of the greatest maneuver of his life, his heart skipped a beat as a small voice echoed off the concrete walls. "Hit the dirt, you retard!" His combat roll was interrupted, as instead of gracefully landing on his back with his weapon downrange, he hit the putrid and stagnant water face first as he landed on his side. Mikhail heard the muffled sounds of gunfire coming from above the water that began to fill his nostrils and mouth. He could feel the urge to puke coming from his stomach, but he held it down and stayed below the water. In front of his face, a reptilian-looking foot and ankle appeared and disappeared almost in an instant as the mutant strode over him. The gunfire continued for a moment more and then stopped as a splash echoed down the long and dilapidated hallway. He heard Misha's voice call out to him as the water muffled and distorted his words. Mikhail rose out of the water, gasping for air, struggling to force the rotten water out of his lungs and nose. He stood up and stared down the hallway, wiping the sediments from his eyes. "Olga, Misha, you guys there?" Mikhail called out. "Yeah, we're here," Olga said as she walked with Misha to Mikhail's position. "Did you find it? Are you okay?" Misha asked, as he patted down his comrade, looking for any signs of wounds or injury. "No, I didn't see anything down there. I got to a small room with some pools of glowing goo, and then that thing came out of nowhere," Mikhail replied through a cough. "What the hell is that thing?" "The bloodsucker," Olga said as she lit a cigarette. "The bastards can basically turn invisible. In a place like this, you'd probably never even see it before it's too late. You're lucky." "No, I'm just good," Mikhail replied as he reached for his canteen and took a drink, attempting to wash the taste of filthy water from his mouth. "Mikhail, did you see anything that looked like a switch? This facility is supposed to have emergency power, which draws from the Agroprom Center above." Misha paused and stared down the hallway. "We're going to need more light than this if we want to even the odds against the things we'll find down here." "I think there might have been, in that room where I found the bloodsucker." "Then we'll go that way. If we want to find the package and make it out alive, we don't have a choice." Olga flicked her cigarette and nodded. She unslung her SVD and began to walk down the hallway as Mikhail and Misha trailed behind. As they ventured down the corridor, A faint green light began to glow brighter at the end of the tunnel as they approached. The red lights illuminated the algae-covered walls, revealing bullet holes and exposed pipes and damaged electrical conduits. There had been others down this way before, and there had been similar engagements with mutants. Mikhail stopped for a moment to examine 4 long gouges in the rock wall. He ran his fingers through them, tracing over them, before realizing what they were. The hand that made these marks was much larger than his, and resembled more of a bear claw than a human's hand. Down the hall he peered into the darkness, looking back towards the body of the bloodsucker that almost claimed his life. He wondered how many others had not been so lucky, and how many had been dragged into the darkness, away from their comrades, never to be seen again. "Mikhail, come on, I think we found it," he could hear Misha yell down the hall. Mikhail double-timed his way to his friends, entering a large rectangular room. He watched as Misha opened an electrical box mounted on the wall. "Ah, yes, this is it," the old man said as he fiddled with the wires. Mikhail and Olga began to scan the darkness, looking for any threats they may be hiding just out of sight. Their headlamps only illuminated a few feet in front of them, before the soft red light dissipated into the void. "Come on, I'm getting the creeps," Olga said, as she shouldered her rifle, aiming at the darkness. The soft glowing green pools were all that could be seen. All that could be heard was the slow churning and the occasional bubble popping. Mikhail began to hear something at the edge of his ears. Not a sound, more of a tingle in his eardrums, as if something was so quiet it was barely audible. It almost seemed like someone, or something, was calling to him, inviting him to come into the darkness. "Misha, what's the sit rep?" Mikhail said, as he began to breathe faster. His heart pounded. "Almost done," Misha said through a nervous chuckle. There was silence, as Mikhail could feel his head swelling. "Now that was intense," Misha said as he grasped the large-handled switch and pulled it down. The electrical box began to crackle as sparks flew. A low hum began to grow louder and louder as lights on the ceiling began to slowly start to glow. The room was illuminated by about a dozen incandescent light bulbs. The light revealed that the large room had boilers lining one wall, covered in catwalks and structure. Small pools of caustic green liquid were randomly scattered throughout the room. Scaffolding, tools, and equipment littered the area. Mikhail turned off the light of his headlamp and walked up to the boilers, which were sitting on platforms a few feet above the ground. His eyes were fixated on something pushed back and almost hidden under the legs of the platform. Something that appeared to be a boot at the end of a leg. "Hey Misha, help me with this." Each of the men held onto the boot and began to pull, as they dragged the body through the shallow water and up a small incline to a dry portion of the floor. Mikhail looked down in horror. The shriveled and dried mummified corpse of this stalker was wearing a Ukrainian military uniform. He turned the body on its side, attempting to get a look at the patch on his arm. He was with the task force that went missing right after the second disaster. Mikhail looked up at his comrades. The poor bastard must have survived after all. Mikhail began to pat down his body, looking for any equipment or supplies that could still be of use. "Yeah, he's not the first one we've heard of either," Misha said, as he watched Mikhail search the corpse. "A lot of them are still operating here, working with the group called Duty." Mikhail stopped his pat-down and looked up at Misha. "Why didn't they try to get back? If they could make it here, surely they could make it to the cordon, right? It wouldn't be too hard to find a military checkpoint." Misha shrugged his shoulders as he put a cigarette in his mouth. He lit it, and looking at Mikhail smiling, said, "Why didn't you?" Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed part 4 of this story. Part 5 should be out next week, and if you did enjoy this video, feel free to like and subscribe for more Stalker-related content. This video is made possible by patrons like you. If you'd like to support the channel on Patreon, you can find a link in the description below. Until next time, I'll see you in the zone.